Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. I want to talk a bit about Joseph Parker, who, as I'm sure you know, scored his career best win over Deontay Wilder on the day of reckoning over in Riyadh. His best win against a strangely out of sorts Wilder. Very, very odd performance by Wilder. Very odd mentality. Tactics were just bizarre. But let's not take anything away from Joseph Parker, because it was a good win and a really fantastic year in 2023, considering was it September, October last year, 2022, he was badly knocked out by Joe Joyce, but he's come back with 4 wins. And once again, there is no substitute for keeping busy, for going in the gym, staying focused, and then getting under those bright lights and plying your trade. And Parker has done that. Enormous respect to Parker for getting back on the horse after being badly knocked off by Joe Joyce. And Joyce, as we know, has had a disastrous 2023. He's fought Zhilei Zhang twice and has lost twice, including being completely ironed out in their second fight. Okay, but the question is, what's next for Joseph Parker? Because clearly he's someone who, in the past, has flattered to deceive. He's got a lot of natural talent. He's been way too laid back in the past, hasn't put his foot on the pedal to try and get guys out of there that he should have done. With a bit more spite, with a bit more venom, a bit more verve, he could have perhaps beaten Dillian Whyte years ago when he fought him. I think, him fighting Joe Joyce, that was a very good performance by Joyce. I mean, tactically as well as... he used his attributes well, his size, that big thudding, battering ram jab, and he jumped on Joseph Parker early, and contained him and scored a very good win. But Parker did show a lot of fighting spirit in that fight, even though he lost it clearly and was knocked out. It wasn't like he completely capitulated, because that pressure was coming on early. So he's kind of answered a few questions, I think. Again, I think there is an asterisk by the Wilder win, because Wilder was so bad. But I'm not taking it away from Parker. Please appreciate that. Trust me. I think he finally showed, especially in conjunction with Andy Lee's tactics, that he can. He listens, he learns, he turns the negatives into positives, and a good performance. Very cautious early on against Wilder, respectful of the right hand, no problem with that. Stayed on the edge of the range, but he took the centre of the ring and wasn't running. There was no running in Parker, even though you can argue he was a bit too conservative in the early rounds, first 3 rounds, but he brought it on strong. And Andy Lee said beforehand, we're expecting a knockout. We'll be disappointed if we don't get it. I don't think Andy Lee will be too disappointed, and neither will Joseph Parker, because to win virtually every round against Deontay Wilder is a definite plus. But let's have a look at the rankings, because the question is, what is Joseph Parker going to do next? Who's he going to fight next? And I was taking a look at the rankings. I'll go through them with you. Now, these are before his victory over Wilder. But considering he's beaten Wilder so convincingly, you would expect him to jump up. All right? So if you start with the WBC, before Saturday's fight, Wilder was ranked the number 1 contender to Tyson Fury. You can argue what the hell has he done to deserve that ranking. I tend to agree. Joseph was at number 8. So at the very least, he should be making progress. Wilder should fall. Joseph should move up. It doesn't necessarily follow that Joseph Parker would become the number 1 contender, because he'd be leaping over Anthony Joshua. He'll certainly leap over Makhmudov, who was ranked 3, because he lost to Ajit Kabayel. Frank Sanchez was in the mix, F.A. Ajagba, Jared Anderson, Martin Bakole. Of those fighters, I would say Martin Bakole would be a good bet for Parker. Possibly Jared Anderson, who showed some hints of vulnerability against Charles Martin, who was really up for that fight. Anderson is psychologically quite an unusual guy, or quite a complicated guy. Says he doesn't even want to fight, doesn't like boxing, wants to make a load of money when he's 26, 28 and then get out. Okay, fair enough. Talented guy, but a question mark over his psyche. Then, of course, we've got a rematch with Joshua for Parker. That's a possibility. F.A. Ajagba is a fight that I think Parker can win that one. I think he can beat all of these guys, on a good day. But if I had to pick of the ones who are above Parker in these rankings, again, these are rankings before Saturday's win. I think a Jagba's an interesting proposition, but Bacoli, that fight could probably be made. So yeah, that's the WBC. Let's move on to the WBA. Now, Deontay Wilder was ranked number 1 by the WBA, and Joseph Parker was not in their top 15. Not in their top 15. I have no idea why this was. Is he going to be ranked now? I'd imagine he would be. But when you consider they've got Ivan Ditchko at 15, Jonathan Goudry at 14. I mean, you know who Jonathan Goudry is? I mean, the Don King fighter who he scored some half decent wins since losing to Trevor Bryan. But come on, man. I mean, you know, Justice Hooney is at 13. Junior Farr, who got knocked out by Frank Sanchez, was at 10. You got Fabio Wardley at 9. Sanchez himself was at 8. Jarrell Miller lost. He was at 6. Lenier Perro at 5 and Makhmudov at 4. But again, the one that I would set my sights on if I was Parker is their number 2 ranking, who's Martin Bacoli. Now, Parker's already beaten Deontay Wilder, who's number 1. If he can beat Martin Bacoli, who's number 2, what's to say he can't become mandatory? I mean, surely you could call those 2 eliminators if he gets to a number 1 and 2 in the WBA's rankings. By the way, just as an aside, which is absurd, the WBA still have Emmanuel Char as their regular champ or interim champ, whatever the hell rubbish it is. All right, I suppose you could put Parker in with him, but I would rather see him in with Bacoli. I think the Bacoli fight's quite attractive. But that's the WBA in all their finite wisdom with their absurd rankings. Let's move on to the IBF. I'm talking about the rankings now. Obviously, Usyk's the champ. Filip Hrgovic is number 1. Otto Wallin, who lost to Joshua, was number 2. Joshua himself was at 3. Parker himself was at 4. And I think I'm right in saying that Deontay Wilder is nowhere to be seen in the IBF's rankings. Now, also included in their rankings is Kem Lindquist, who I know very, very little about. Justice Hooney is at 14. Murat Gasayev, who lost to Wallin, was at 13. Kabayel was at 12. He's going to move up. Again, you've got Bacoli at 11. Wardley at 10. Ajagba at 8. Again, I quite like the Ajagba fight for Parker. Makhmudov, who lost, was at 7. Frank Sanchez at 6. Sylvia should move up. Anderson at 4. And again, as I said, Anderson at 5 and then Parker at 4. So again, we've got a contrasting set of rankings. People missing. Some people ranked highly. And I mean, Wilder with the WBA and WBC is the number 1 contender. And he's not even in the IBF's rankings. There must be something political going on there. Parker's not even in the WBA's rankings, but he's at 4 with the IBF and 8 with the WBC. So go figure. Right, so that brings us to the WBO. Usyk's the champ. Zhilei Zhang is is it the interim or regular champ or whatever they call it? Interim, I think, champ. Joshua's ranked at 1, Anderson at 2, and then Parker's at 3. Okay, Wilder was ranked at 9. So basically, Parker, with the Wilder win, as far as the WBO are concerned, has consolidated his position in the top 3. You would imagine they'd view it that way. Sanchez at 4, Hrgovic at 5, Andy Ruiz is at 6. I think that's way too high. I don't know why he's doing in there. Wardley's at 7. Dubois is at 8, and you would think would stand a chance of maybe moving up a notch or 2 with his victory over Jarrell Miller. As I say, Wilder at 9. Jermaine Franklin is at 10. Ajagba at 11. Wallin at 12, who will fall down after losing to Joshua. Ajit Kabayel, having beaten Makhmudov, he's at 13. He should be moving up. And Makhmudov's actually at 14. And then Justice Hooney at 15. I'm not quite sure how Justice Hooney is getting into all these rankings, but he is. He's at the lower end of them. Maybe you can make an argument for him. I haven't really thought about it. But again, Parker at 3 in the WBO rankings. Looking at all these rankings and trying to imagine the avenues in towards a title fight, I definitely think that Bacoli is the option because he's 7 with the WBC, 2 with the WBA. 11 with the IBF, and is he ranked? He is ranked, isn't he? With the WBO. No, he isn't. He isn't ranked with the WBO. My mistake. Okay, but so rule out the WBO, which is currently ruled by Usyk. You've got 2 of the Usyk belts as things stand. It may change after he's fought Fury, if he fights Fury, of course. If that would get him, that would move him up the chart, so to speak. And the WBC title, which is currently held by his friend Tyson Fury, the Bakole win would definitely move Parker up 1 notch at the very least, because Bakole at the moment is 7 and Parker is 8. I think, failing the Bakole fight, F.A. Ajagba would be a good matchup for Parker, because since losing to Frank Sanchez, he's come back well with some good wins, and you can see improvements in Ajagba. Ajagba, again, highly ranked with the WBC at 5, number 9 with the IBF, and 11 with the WBO. You know, these would be... Parker now needs to fight people who are in the top 10, all right? And kind of don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's kind of like when Dillian Whyte was fixated on the WBC and was determined to go for the WBC belt and kind of ignored other potential avenues through the other ruling bodies. If I was Parker, I would definitely be looking to beat guys who are ranked by most of the organisations. You're going to struggle to find someone who's ranked by all 4, but guys who he can move up every single ranking, so that if an opportunity comes for, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Fury and Usyk. Let's say they fight and then the belts go up in the air. You just don't know what's, or a belt. Like the IBF has been rumoured that the winner of Usyk and Fury will vacate it, although they will strip the champion because they're very strict about mandatories. Yeah, you know, Parker is currently 4 with the IBF. Wallin's going to slip down because he lost to Joshua, who's at 3, Wallin's at 2, and Hrgovic is at 1. So at the very least, you should say that Parker is number 3 with the IBF. If that belt becomes vacant, and let's say the top 2 fight for it, he should, if he keeps winning, become mandatory for that in the not too distant future. So this is all speculative. Of course it is. Other potential opponents, I mean, possibly Andy Ruiz for Parker. They fought before. That would be a rematch that might sell. Someone said to me, what about Dubois Parker? No, I'm not overly keen on that fight. I think Dubois should go down a different route. He's coming off a good win. But for me, Bakole is a good option. Ajagba is a good option. I wouldn't go with Frank Sanchez. Hrgovic won't fight him because he's protecting his IBF mandatory. I would go with Bakole or Ajagba. You know, world-class fighters who have a ranking and who Parker can build upon, a victory over would build upon. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Have you got someone in mind who's not even ranked? Let me know what you think about Parker. Do you think the Wilder victory flattered to deceive, or do you think that he's a deserved? Well, he was a deserved winner certainly, but does he deserve to move up in the rankings? Top 7 or 8, maybe top 6, 7, 8. You tell me. Leave your comments below. As always, I'll have a read of them and answer as many as I can. Thank you for your time as always. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the like button, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.